Welcome to Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Ken Ackerman. We are at the Governor's Mansion, Mahonia Hall in Salem. With us is Michael Jordan, the Chief Operating Officer of the state of Oregon. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's nice to be here.
You know, a lot of people like to talk PERS, and not only now, but ever since I moved to Oregon back in the 80s. Give us a roller coaster history, if you will, a quick one, of PERS and why it's such a hot button right now with the $16 billion shortfall.
Sure. Well, PERS has been around, obviously, a long time as the employee retirement system for Oregon. There was a fundamental shift in the way PERS was paid for. Traditionally, it had been 6% paid for by the employer and 6% contributed to the employee. That's percent of salary. And that's what made up the fund to fund the retirement system. In the early 80s, when we were having hyperinflation and we were in a recession and the state budget was in trouble, there was a negotiated shift in that relationship where employees traded a cost of living adjustment for the state picking up that 6% of PERS. So now, and since 1981 basically, the state has picked up the entire contribution to the PERS fund and employees haven't picked that up. So that's one of the issues that kind of got us to today. And through the 90s, late 80s actually, and through the 90s, the stock market was doing so well that the increase of investment returns to the fund based on stock market performance really masked some underlying structural issues about the way PERS was being paid for. And it wasn't really until the recession in 2000, the dot-com burst, that we started to see trouble in the fund. And by the way, a whole bunch of employees' accounts also got very large during that run-up of the stock market, and a bunch of employees retired at the end of the 90s, early 2000s. So we had this huge move of folks who moved out of the workforce and were getting very good returns on their investment. And then we had the drop in the market, so the PERS fund wasn't getting the kinds of returns on the investment that it had experienced before, and so those structural shifts started to become really apparent.
Now I'm going to stop you because those in the private sector are looking at their 401ks, their retirement plans, and going, wait a minute, who's helping me? Why is so much being given and so much news and being given to those who work for the state?
The state has made some reforms to the PERS system, and now for going forward for new employees, it really is much more like a 401k system. It's a contribution-based system. The difference between the private sector, not all the private sector, but most of it, is that we're still in this place where the state is picking up the 6% for employees. That doesn't happen in a lot of public or private sector firms. So, but that's a negotiated thing. That pickup's in labor contracts, and labor will tell you they traded cost of living adjustments years ago for that 6%, and so there's some tension around that issue.
All right, there's so much more to talk about with PERS, but we have to move on. We have 1 minute left. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh.
We've talked that long. We have a 10-year strategic plan and also an outcome-based budget that are linked.
Right. The governor, when he came into office this second time around, was really concerned that we were making decisions only based on the 2-year budget cycle, not thinking long-term for what we were trying to deliver to Oregonians over the long term. What outcomes were we trying to get to on the ground? So first of all, he said, we're going to create a 10-year strategic plan, outcome-based, with strategies, with metrics to measure success, and then align our programs to that. Then we're doing the next 2-year budget based on those outcomes and those strategies. So really trying to prioritize what we do, knowing it's a resource-constrained environment, prioritize what we do based on those outcomes.
Will you come back and talk about healthcare and more about PERS with us?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Michael Jordan.
You bet.
Thank you for being here on Comcast Newsmakers from the Governor's Mansion in Salem. I'm Ken Ackerman. Make it a great day.